Hello everyone, what's going on, and welcome back to the Bit of Footy YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm holding my microphone, which means it is time for another tipping video. That is right, we are going to be running through my round 2 tips for the 2025 AFL Premiership season in today's video. Now before we do that, let's take a look and see how I did back in round number 1. Alright, as you can see at the top of the screen, I got 8 out of 9 tips correct last round. The only tip I didn't get correct was the Carlton one, which I think most people didn't get correct anyway. But other than that, geez, look at all the green ticks. I got Hawthorn, the Cats, the Lions, the Dogs, the Pies, the Crows, the Giants, and the Suns. Luckily, I stayed with the Suns because I was actually considering changing to the Eagles, but I stuck with the Suns and they got the job done for me. Alright, having a look at my own tipping competition, Dev Pike is in the first spot. And Dev Pike is on a total score of 10 points and got 8 out of 9 tips last round. So congrats to Dev. In second spot though, it's me. I'm in second spot, surprisingly, considering how average I normally am at tips. I'm on a total score of 9 points and got 8 out of 9 tips correct last round. But yeah, let's not dilly-dally around any longer. Let's take a look and see what my tips are for round number 2 of the 2025 AFL Premiership season. Alright, we kick it off with tonight, where the Blues are playing the Hawks. The Blues, they're coming off that surprise loss against the Tigers. The Hawks, they're coming off a good win over the Bombers. The Hawks are in some good form at the moment. I do think this will be a good, close, intense game of footy. I think Carlton, that was pretty unacceptable for them to their standards from last round, that loss against the Tigers. So I think they're really going to take it up to the Hawkers in this game, but I do think the Hawks, they're in some terrific form at the moment. Like I've been saying, they've just continued on from that good form from the second half of last season and brought it into this season. And yeah, they've won 2 games in a row. They're unbeaten at the moment, and I think that's going to remain. I'm going to go the Hawks over the Blues in this one. I do think it's going to be like a relatively good close game of footy, so I'm going to go the Hawks by a margin of 14 points in this one over the Blues. Next up, we head to the MCG again. Friday night footy. It is the Dogs taking on my Pies at the MCG. Should be a good game. This one, the Dogs, they're having their 100th or 150th anniversary. I forgot which one it is. Put it up on the screen right now. I know I sound like an idiot, but they're having an anniversary game against us. I do think it's going to be a very good, tight, contested game of footy. The Dogs, they got the job done over North Melbourne last round. They had a few injuries going into that game, but still managed to win that one. My Pies, we looked very good. We beat the Power by 91 points. Whether the Power, are going to be good this season or not, that's still to come. But yeah, it should be a decent game of footy, this one. It normally is between the Dogs and my Pies. I'm going to be backing in my Pies at the MCG. Hopefully we can take a lot of confidence from how we played against Port Adelaide last round and bring it into this game against the Dogs. I do think it's going to be a good contested game of footy though, this one. But yeah, I'm tipping my Pies at the G over the Dogs in this one. Alright, next up, we're at the MCG again, would you believe it? We move on to the Saturday games. We kick it off with Essendon taking on Adelaide at the MCG. Essendon, they're coming off that loss against the Hawks. The Crows, they're coming off a big win over the Saints last round. I'm going to be tipping the Crows in this one over the Bombers. I do think the Bombers are going to be very, very competitive in this game. They were sort of competitive against the Hawks. It was sort of a, ebbing and flowing type game of footy, but the Hawks were, just too good in the end. If Essendon didn't give Hawthorn the head start that they gave them, who knows, Essendon maybe could have got a result in that game or made the game a little bit closer than it was. But yeah, the Crows, geez, they looked very up and about last week. Whether they are going to look up and about this week, whether they're going to win by a big margin, I don't know. I don't think they're going to win by a big margin, but I think they're going to take a lot of bounce, a lot of confidence from that big win over the Saints, bring it into this game and be able to beat the Bombers at the MCG. I do think the Bombers do have the potential to win. I think, that loss against the Hawks, it was a minor stumble, that they're still going to, play some good footy this season. And I wouldn't be shocked if they won this game at the MCG over the Crows, but I feel like with how the Crows played in round one, they're going to take a lot of confidence from that win and bring it into this game. So I'm tipping the Crows over the Bombers, but this is one of those games where I wouldn't be shocked if I changed my tip to the Bombers. Next up, we head to the Adelaide Oval. Finally not at the MCG. We've got Port Adelaide taking on the Tigers at the Adelaide Oval. The Power, they're coming off a disappointing 91-point loss to my Pies, and the Tigers, well, they're coming off an inspirational win over the Blues. How good was that win for the Tigers over the Blues? They've got such a young squad, so for them to win that game, that was phenomenal for them. Do I think they're going to win this game? No, but I can see them keeping it quite competitive and quite a close game. And if it does stay that way, if it does stay sort of a close game of footy, maybe Richmond can go 2-0. That's all I'm saying, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Port Adelaide, even though they lost by 91 points against my Pies, will still be too good for the Tigers in this one. And they're going to be, coming out angry. That was just unacceptable from the Power last week. It really was. I know that we won by 91 points. I should be happy. But the Power, they shouldn't be losing by 91 points. Especially, they made a preliminary final last year. They shouldn't be losing by 91 points. So I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to be beating the Tigers in this one. Could it be a close game? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see, but I've got the Power beating the Tigers in this one. Next up, we go to the last game of the Saturday bunch. We've got St Kilda taking on the Cats at Marvel Stadium. The Saints, they're coming off that pretty big loss to the hands of the Crows. The Cats, they're coming off a very good, impressive win over the Dockers. They did get challenged a little bit by the Dockers in that game. I think the margin at one stage was brought down from 40 plus or 60 plus to 20 points from the Dockers, but the Cats, they're a mature bunch. They handled the game and got the win by 40 plus in the end anyway, so it didn't really matter that comeback that the Dockers were making. I'm going to go the Cats in this one over the Saints. I don't know. The Saints, they're such an up and down team that if they won this game, it wouldn't really shock me at this point, because they can pull off surprising wins against the teams like Geelong, my Pies, Sydney, etc. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Cats will be too good for the Saints in this one. They looked very good besides that little patch where the Dockers were coming back. They looked very, very good last week, the Cats, and I think they're just going to look good this week against the Saints. Yeah, I'm going the Cats over the Saints in this one. Alright, then we move on to the last three games of the round. It's the Sunday bunch, and we kick it off 1:10 p.m. at the Gabba. We have got the Lions taking on the Eagles. The Lions, they're coming off that 4-point very good win over the Swans. The Eagles, they're coming off a big loss against the Suns. I'm going to be tipping the Lions in this game at the Gabba. No premiership hangover for the Lions, it seems. They got absolutely challenged by the Swans last week in round number 1. I think the Swans kicked the first 4 goals or whatever it was. But then the Lions, they came back into the game. They grinded it out and they got the win in the end in a very good game of footy, winning by 4 points over the Swans. It was a different tale for the Eagles. They got, sort of battered by the Suns in that game. They had a few good moments here or there. They kicked a few goals here and there. But in the end, it just, wasn't a good day for the Eagles. And yeah, I don't think it's going to get any easier for them, unfortunately. Hopefully they can be a little bit more competitive than they were against the Suns in this game. But only time will tell. They're facing the Lions at the Gabba. It's going to be a daunting task for them. So yeah, I'm going the Lions in this one over the Eagles. Then we move on to Marvel Stadium, 3:20 p.m. We've got the Roos taking on the D's. if I had to describe them, two working class football teams. North Melbourne, they challenged and challenged and challenged the Dogs last round, but just couldn't find the winning score in the end. You know, they got the margin to within 7 points against the Dogs last round, but just couldn't get there. They just couldn't push over the line, and the Dogs just, you know, were mature in that win over the Roos. The D's, Jesus, what a game they had against the Giants. They were up with a few seconds remaining, and then Lockie Keefe kicked the winner and got the job done for the Giants in that game. Should be a good game, this one. I reckon North were going to really take it up to the D's, but you know, the D's, they showed me something, and that's what I asked of them. They did show me something. They showed that they're going to be competitive this year, considering that the Giants haven't lost a game this year, and they took it right up to the Giants, only losing in the final seconds. They showed me something, and therefore I'm going to be tipping the D's in this one over North Melbourne under the roof at Marvel Stadium. And then the last game of the round, we've got Freo taking on the Swans at Optus Stadium, 6:10 p.m. start time on a Sunday. The Dockers, they're coming off that big loss against the Cats. The Swans, they're coming off that devastating 4-point loss against the Lions. I almost forgot who they played. Well, both teams are coming into this game off the back of losses. I think it's going to be a ripper, though. I really do think this is going to be a ripper. You know, the Swans, they played very well last week against the Premiers in the Lions. The Dockers, I mean, they didn't play that well. Let's be real. They had a good patch where they brought the margin from like 60 down to 21. But besides that, did they play that well? Not really. I wouldn't say so. I didn't really catch much of their game, but from looking at the scores, not really, you can say. I do think it's going to be a good, competitive, you know, contested game of footy. But in the end, I think the Swans are going to win. I think the Swans are going to go to Perth and beat the Dockers. I think it's going to be a very, you know, close game margin-wise, this one. But I can just see the Swans getting over the Dockers in this one. I thought they played very well against the Lions. Yes, they only just lost, but I thought they did play very well against the Lions. And I think they're going to take a lot of confidence. Even though they lost, I think they're going to take a lot of confidence from that game. Take it into this game against the Dockers, who played pretty poorly, besides a patch of good, you know, minutes against the Cats, who they still played pretty poorly against the Cats. So yeah, I'm going the Swans in this one over the Dockers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are all my tips done and dusted for round number 2. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to, you can join my tipping competition. Link is in the description below. And yeah, if you want to, you can like, you can subscribe. And I'm just saying stuff because the video is over. All right, see ya.